Hello, my dear students. Welcome back to another chapter and the last chapter of BL3. The chapter 12, I said the chapter 12 is the last chapter. I apologize for that. And this is the last chapter, chapter 13, anti money laundering. Very important chapter. There'll be lots and lots of questions. Please focus on this and let's get into it. So, what we learn in the anti money laundering is the acts Prevention of Money Laundering Act number 5 of 2006, Financial Transaction Reporting Act number 6 of 2006, Memorandum of Understanding with other countries is important. And the commission, what does the Commission of Bribery and Corruptions, CIA BOC, Allah's Dushana Commission Sabha, that's what they say in Sri Lanka. So, and there are some case laws as well. So, let's get into it. Yes, the first one is the Act, Prevention of Money Laundering Act number 5 of 2006. Money laundering has been defined by many. Yes, there are many definitions, but the common definitions is as a detailed and many organized comprising of several phases through which criminal who commits organized crimes and amasses the proceeds of such crime and their agents seek to disguise the illicit nature of such proceeds of crime by introducing the proceeds into the streams and processes of legitimate finance, trade, and commerce, and following a series of transactions which appear to legitimate develop a business, develop a valid explanation for possessing wealth thereafter of such wealth as purposes such as criminals. So, who are these criminals? Crimes such as contract killing, drug trafficking, people smuggling, arms smuggling, bank robberies, smugglings of goods, bribery, and corruption are referred as organized crimes. So, money laundering is part of organized crimes. It's because you are you're gathering your wealth immensely. Immensely means hugely by such bad deeds, and you are hiding it because for the income tax, for the bribery commission, when they have to show that where did you get this money from, that's a question that they ask. Normally they would hide the money, they would invest in such companies, and they will keep the money in cash, such as mainly drug lords. They normally do money laundering as well. So, and terrorists, that's what they do. So, part of the organized crimes is money laundering. So, the following enactment have been introduced to combat money laundering is the two acts: Convention of Suppression of Terrorism Financing Act number 25 of 2005, Prevention of Terrorism Act PTA. So 2019 it has been amended by regulation number 1 in new due to this East attack. So order under regulation 75 of the Emergency Miscellaneous Provisions of the Powers and Regulations Act, suspicious transactions, financial transaction reporting regulations. So these acts are quite new, I suppose. Prevention of Terrorism Act is actually brought by in 1990s, but it has been revitalized. It has been re-brought to the Parliament due to this after this Easter attack. So the first one is Prevention of Money Laundering. Objective of the Act. The Section 2 says, person who commits such an offence under the Provision Act while being resident in Sri Lanka or an institution who has been regulated, or an act which constitutes offence under such as. So, to whom this act applies? Section 3 defines any person who engage directly and indirectly in this kind of transaction, directly or indirectly with unlawful activities, receive, possess, conceal, dispose of bringing into Sri Lanka such transfers for money out of books. We say in law it's called out of books, not in the books, because if you mention the money in the books, that means you are already being mentioned, so that someone can actually what do you say, questions. The authority can question you. Okay, you bought this, how much this money? It has written in the books. So where did you get the money from, and where are you keeping it? So these are the questions that authority can actually questions you. Yes, so the punishments are, if the high court will found you guilty, uh, it will be a rigorous imprisonment less than 5 years and not exceeding 20 years. So 5 to 20 years depends on the how much of crime that you have committed, how much money you have laundered or stolen. So that's how it is. So the second is say subsection says any person who attempts to conspire to commit offense money laundering, aids or abates commission of the offense of money, you will go up to the high court. Obviously, shall subsection abate shall have the meaning, same meaning as section 100 and 101. Yes, exactly, 100 and 101 is means the same punishment that you will get as the money launderer if you been caught by conspire. Conspire means help them to commit such act. For avoidance of doubts, hereby declare the conviction for the commission by the accused and unlawful activity shall not be necessary for the proof of the offence under the provision of the Acts. Background to the money laundering offences. Exactly. Let's go to the history. How does this came into effect? So the money laundering as a crime may attracted interest in the 1980s. So in the 1980s, where the actual drug, the war on drugs has begun, the war on terrorism has begun after it lately. Mainly war on drugs. Money laundering has started when during in South America, in US and states, but it has quickly spread around the globe because they are busy hiding their money in many banks and they don't have to show anything. So that's how it is. So exactly, within the drug trafficking contents, increase awareness of huge profits generated of criminal activities such as massive drug abuse problem in the Western society. Exactly, started in the American continent. Famous drug lord called Pablo Escobar. And Colombia. They have started these money laundering problems into the Israel. They hide so many money in Panama, the country Panama, in the banks and some places like that. So it became a huge problem. So that's how they got their money into the country. So it became a big issue, and there was lots and lots of crime has been skyrocketed due to this. So they have brought, this is an international law as well. If a country caught doing money laundering, serious, it's a serious offense. There will be sanctions. There will be penalties from the UN. So see, it says that government also recognizes that criminal organization through the huge profit that they earn drugs could contaminate and corrupt structures state at all levels, because you always bribe people, you bribe state officials, you bribe judges, you bribe ministers, even the presidents and prime ministers also. So drug trafficking is a huge thing because it's the individuals who are the one who profiting themselves, not the ordinary people. Because if the money doesn't come into the government, if the money doesn't come as a tax for the people to what you call to prosper, then the obviously government goes bankrupt and they will take huge loans to pay, and it will come out of pockets from the ordinary people. But the real money is in the pockets of the rich people, the powerful people. So money laundering is a truly global phenomenon. So Google the word if you don't know the word phenomenon. Okay, iconic, but not in a, actually is in a negative way. Held by the international finance community around the clock. When one financial center closes business for the day, another one is opening or open for business. Yes, in 1993, UN report noted that basic characteristic of laundering procedure of crime to a large extent also mark the operations of organized and transnational crime, its global nature, flexibility and adaptability of its operations to use latest technological means to professional assistant ingenuities operators of vast resources as they are disposal. So European Communities Directive also mentioned about money laundering. So they have the European continent, they have their own version of what is money laundering, and they disregard the money laundering as well. So how does the money laundering involve in distinct process? So there are so many ways, but these are the basic steps that the money laundering, if you can caught per person is laundering money, which is the placement. This is the very first stage that the procedure of crime is injected into the formal financial system. The second is obviously layering, which is injected financial system is spread or moved the various transactions in different accounts in different countries, thereby making it difficult to trace the source of origin of money exactly. So when you get a huge sum of money, you invest in a foreign bank, as example, well, there are many banks, but you example it, so you move it from country to country, account to account, make it extremely difficult to track down because it takes a tremendous amount of time to take permissions from bank to another bank, to get the information and so on. But when that time comes, he or she or they has already spent the money that they have laundered. So integration, the last stage in the entire financial system in such way that can original association with the crime is sought to obliterated so that the money can be then used by the offender first as receiving as clean money. Exactly. So when they move from here to there and they're investing in some sort of a bogus uh, financial system, they it comes as clean money rather than dirty money. We say not dirty money, black money, also known as money laundering. The money comes off from the money laundering. So an interesting thing, this is also kinds of a general knowledge as well. So there are various methods of money laundering illegal money: creating shell and a bogus company. Yes, I said before, investing in real estate, buying a land for money and then selling it, making the profit legal by paying tax on such profit. Yes, you uh, buy a land, buy apartments, buy houses and everything, and you keep it and you say that, and then you give it to like some sort of a rent, or you selling it for far more higher prices. That's it. You show that I got the money by selling this particular land or apartment or the house. Cash smuggling for transferring money to the banks of certain countries with favorable laws and practice. Exactly, countries like Singapore, Dubai. There's some few European countries as well, Switzerland. So they don't have these um, favorable laws and practices for this country. Anyone, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can go and invest the money. They don't even bother to look where the money comes from. Hawala transactions. Yes. So if left checked, and money laundering is can destroy a nation's economy by changing the demand for supply for cash. It also affects the interest rate, exchange rate and other economic denominators by making them volatile. Exactly, because if there's money laundering, because the money laundering, black money does not pay taxes. Because if the money does not pay taxes, the the government does not have a profit. They don't gain an income, so the money, everything goes into the pockets. So that's what happened. It will devastated the economies because there are no proper transactions are coming place. Presumption of money laundering. So being money could not be, so that's how it is. Part of income receipts on such person being property rather than money cannot be billed. So part of the sections. Freezing order. So if there are so many money into the accounts, such particular person who found it guilty, they'll take a court order and they will freeze the bank accounts, freeze the assets, because they are no longer to sell it, or to transfer it to someone else in order to, you know, what you called, to protect it, because they will be vulnerable. So that's how a freezing order is. uh, yes, police officer not be able to rank superintendent who will be absence of such assistant superintendent. So assistant superintendent is an ASP. uh, so they have the authority to go and freeze someone else's assets by from a court order. Has to come from a court order. A police cannot act, cannot go into a particular bank, a particular money institution and say to freeze a bank. It has to come under by a court. From a judge has to give the authority. Yes, so that's what the all says over here. So transaction in contravention if freezing order in null and void. Section 9 says no transaction shall be affected in relation to such account, property or investment while freezing order is in force, and any transaction so effect shall be null and void. So you have to say that freezing order has to be null and void in order to process continue with the transaction. High court to permit essential legitimate transaction. So in that money thing, in that black money that you have invested in, the people have invested in that, if the court gave a freezing order, certain transactions can come through, such as pay bills and or pay salaries for the account people. Some transaction can go through, but the owners cannot buy anything from that purchase anything from that money. Appointment of a receiver. So section 11 says that upon an application made in the behalf of the police officer not below the rank of superintendent or an assistant superintendent will be issued by courts. Yes, punishments, very nasty things. If you get caught, falsely conceal, destroy, otherwise dispose. Of course, the permit, false and concealment will be disposal of any document such as a material or thing likely to be relevant to execution. Divulge offense of money and everything. Another person will be cited for like to prejudice, falsification of documents and offenses. Also, part of is a very serious comment. Any person who contravenes High Court will be fined and not exceeding at 100,000 rupees, or to imprisonment or either description or period not exceeding 1 year, or both such fine and imprisonment. Yes, accounts has been freeze. They will freeze all your assets and liquid cash. They will take into the government's authority under by the authority, and you will be fined and sentenced into imprisonment. So that's how the money laundering act works. And let's get into Financial Transaction Reporting Act number 6 of 2006. Objective is to provide a collection of data relating suspicious financial transaction to facilitate prevention, detection, investigation and prosecution of the offenses of money laundering and the financing of terrorism. Yes, a very serious offensive an offense to commit. So to require a certain institution undertake due diligence measure to combat money laundering, identify authorities and be responsible to monitor them, provide to such conducting their after incident there are two. So institutions under the acts and their duties. Yes, so they have defined in what sort of an institution they are. So it's defined as the what sort of a institution, that what are the acts shall be fulfilled. These are the things. Sorry. So powers of the financial investigation unit is well, there's financial intelligence unit. Mainly they have done by FCID. Fraud bureau. Normally in shortened form, we say that. Yes, verification requirements. So they have to go for the institution. Sometimes they go undercover as employees and managers and so on. Provisions of subsection does not apply because of these reasons. Yeah, there's quite a few, but normally people have to they have to justify by nature and duty of the transaction type and amount of currency involved, parties to the transaction, name and address. So they have to involve everything if there's a transaction goes by. If there are no transaction has by gone by books, then they will be breaching of this act. So yes, still thing. And So normally this what it goes is go for looking for any other terrorism funding relativity. So financial investigation unit FTRA is under this act number, and there's a administrative, they check the administrative structure under the central bank framework. So it's obviously ordered by the president himself rather than not. So, act efficiently discharge any statutory function by leveraging policy making and regulating regulatory capabilities in the central bank. So, objectives. So, strengthening anti-money laundering, countering and financing of terrorism, updating the existing money laundering and counting financing terrorism, upgrading compliance of set of Sri Lankan international accepted level, strengthening cooperation in international organization, and implementation of international recommendation, practice money laundering and counter financing of terrorism. So the functions is obviously the same: cash transaction report, electronic funds, suspicious transactions. So they have to uh, thoroughly investigate those things, and financial trace, support prosecutions, and form of tactical and operational and strategical implementation, dissemination is money laundering and terrorism financing across border activities. So this includes that you have financed terrorism locally or internationally. So if you find any guilty of it, then that is a very serious offense regarding that, and court will immediately find you guilty. So section 15 of FTRA so says that issuing rules to the financial and other reporting section of customers identification and record keeping. So conducting programs, conducting examination, conduct research links and trains of money laundering. So on financial intelligence units may issue prescribing official documents regarding reliable, independent or source of documents, data and information and required and so on. Power of the FIU. So always receive reports, information agency of another country, information provided by financial intelligence, law enforcement agency, government and so on. They always look for unlawful activities, an offense of money laundering, financing terrorism and so on. So they go as as I said before, undercover. It's just to look at companies, are they laundering financially or not. So disclosure to FIU is reporting requirements to FIU. Section 8 Act deals at the particular these things exist of any property or possession of control. They will definitely investigate information regarding transactions, information regarding proposed transactions, financial businesses, banking. These are the things: money transferring, credit card, travel, issuing financial guarantees, and community trading in money, market instrument, foreign exchange, and all. Participating in security issues, financial services, such and any other business, and so on. Designated non-finance business and professions. Yes, non-finance business and professions. So entertainment side, they also look for those. FTRA, casinos, gambling houses, conducting of lottery, including a person who carries on such business or through other interests. Because casinos and gambling areas, they have a license, they do pay heavy taxes to the government. If they find an illegal casinos and gambling places, that does not comes under prevention of money laundering. They will be quickly arrested. Some areas are being raided due to this by police. So reporting institution: licensed commercial banks, specialized bank, finance companies, leasing companies, insurance stock brokers. So these are the real reporting institutions. If you are if you have a license, if you are registered under one of these categories, that means you are paying income taxes, which is uh, immense helpful for the future of the economy of your country. So section 12 acts provide no civil, criminal, disciplinary proceedings lie against any person or institution reporting suspicious transaction under the FTRA in good faith or in being compliance with regulation made under the act or rules of direction given by the FIU. Exactly punishments under section 99: penalty not exceeding 1 rupee 1 million in gain case subsequent violation of similar nature double amount of imposed as a penalty on the original location plus penalty for each compliances. Yes, it's normally these are the penalties, these are the fines that you will get, but let's find out if there's an imprisonment. So customer due diligence rules, financial transaction. So this act always say that so there are gazettes to came effective in 2016. So every financial situation shall take appropriate step to identify and assess manage its money laundering and terrorism financing risks. So following our same key rules and established by formation law, document risk financing, keep assessment up to date, having appropriate mechanisms, considering all relevant task risk factors, determining level of all risk and appropriate in many mitigation applies. Every financial institution shall proper risk control in mitigation measures in according. So having internal policies, monitoring implementation of those policies. So these are the actual institutions that are have license under that FIU. So every financial institution has to be do these things. Every law states financial institution shall identify its customers and the customer base, who are they are, obviously. So yeah, and give your personal information. So CDT for legal person arrangement, understand the nature of the customer's business and so on. So keep going. Memorandum and understanding with these other countries. So it is an essential for a country to have comprehensive structure that facilitates information sharing, competent authorities locally intention as criminals, especially in money laundering and terrorism financing, I believe, to operate across the borders, because terrorist financing and foreign counterparts and so on. Related to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has contributed to the global effort of MLTF and related crimes by promoting three acts, incorporated requirements, FTF recommendations. Yes, the three acts that I mentioned before. Financial task force. Yes, we do have financial task force, and to respond according to the G7 summit held in Paris in 1989, recognizing the banking system and proper financial institution under the European Commission's and 8 other countries financial risk FATF Financial Action Task Force has been established into look into money laundering and terrorism financing. So, and also proliferating weapons of mass destruction. So FATF does intends for combat money laundering, financing terrorism, proliferating weapons of mass destruction, WMDs. That's what they say. So quite interesting. They do an immense projects, help and so on to keep the economies of the countries safe and step when keeping the world peace. Two, FATF country members progress implementing necessary measures, reviews money laundering and terrorism finance techniques, can countermeasures, and promote adaptation and implementation of appropriate measures globally. In preparing of activities, collaborates with other international agencies involved in combating money laundering and financing terrorism. Among international initiative company, Article 7.1 says that in Palermo Convention is the United Nations Convention against Transnational Organized Crimes. This has been done by the country Italy. There's a small island called Sicily, Palermo. The Palermo Convention says that organized crimes has to be limited and to be stopped by all means. That's why the Financial Action Task Force also been mentioned in the Article 7.1. So Eggman Group. So what is this Eggman Group? Recognizing the importance of international cooperation in the fight against money laundering and financing terrorism, Group Financial Institution (FIU) met the Eggman Arenberg Palace in Brussels, Belgium, and decided to establish informal network FIU stimulation of international cooperation. Now the Eggman Group Financial Institution, Eggman Group FIUs meets regularly, find ways to promote development of FIUs and to cooperate, uh, exchange training, sharing and expertise. So Eggman Group is normally that FATF, to every country who does things by books. that we say has an FTA, FATF. If there's a money laundering and counterterrorism measures go by, these groups can contact any other the similar groups that are stationed in other countries, and then it has to be done informally. There's no other things. If they can contact each other, the countries will be able to work together to find the proper transaction, where does the money goes to. Yes, the goal and the expanding systems and increasing the effectiveness and fostering and promoting and so on, promoting the establishment of value conjunction with the jurisdictions of AML CFT, promoting APG, Asia Pacific Group of Money Laundering. Yes, we do have our own Asian and Pacific region. We have our money laundering. The APG is like the Igman Group in Europe and the APG Group in Asia. So it's quite interesting. Yes, Convention Suppression of Terrorism Financing Act number 25 of 2015, a Sri Lankan um, obligation. So it's international convention of under the adopted by United Nations in January 10, 2000. Tax prohibited financing terrorist act, terrorism and organization for the CSTFA has provision for the freezing terrorism finance related to assets and forfeiture of such assets has been further strengthened and amendments brought in the 2011 and 2013. Commission to Investigate Bribery Commission CIABOC. It was established in 1994 with the enactment of 17th amendment to the Constitution by the investigated by bribery corruption. We say Allah Saudushan Commission Sabava Act Bribery Commission and they have established a Bribery Act number 11 of 1954 as amendment in back in the days, and there has been the Declaration of Assets and Liability Law number 1 of 1975. Yes, the always commission convenes these kind of things. They have their own legal structure, their own structural administration body, and they do their own investigation with the help of the police and the judicial system. Yes, so yes, that's all. This is the end of the um, chapter 13, anti-money laundering, and there are so many examples that I can give it to you, such as the Hyatt Regencies, that the second tallest building. If you don't know what that is, it's right in front of the Cinnamon Gardens, the tall building, huge massive building. It's an I think it's an Australian company funded Hyatt. If I'm not mistaken, please do correct me. There's so much money laundering made on by the help of the ministers and so on, and there were so many court cases came, and the construction, the project had to be stopped, and there was a $1 billion dollars of investment just wasted because due to involving so many dirty hands. There should be a lot of jobs should have been created, but it has been hold for many years. But finally, there's a one company who's took in charge, and they're keeping it. So that's a popular case for money laundering as well, and also well, the bone scam, obviously one of the money laundering, also known as theft, and the sugar commission, the sugar bribery thing, so that's the one thing. So there are many things. I just said some classic examples as these for money laundering, and it became very serious back in Sri Lanka. That's caused to the collapse of this economy because the money does not comes into the state. Instead of it goes to the pockets and private bank accounts of the people. So very serious issue. It These kind of things collapse the economy entirely. Will the economy will run down. People will be jobless for many decades. So that's all for this chapter, and this is the end of BL3. Thank you for staying and hoping to catch on tutors and other exam videos.